Hey guys, Jason here. Welcome back to the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Carveco Maker. In this video, we'll be exploring the world of 3D reliefs, the third part of our four-part series. Join us as we show you how to manipulate and transform existing relief models in Carveco Maker. We'll also be sharing tips and tricks to help you get the most out of these powerful tools. As always, this video will be broken up into chapters in the description below for easy referencing. So let's get started. We're going to start a new model. I'm just going to use 20 by 20 with max resolution, referencing the bottom left corner, and we're working in inches. Once we have our project open, if you notice that your material is not set up the same way as mine, I recommend you watching the first video intro to Maker, and that'll show you how to set up your material with the rulers and the dots added, as well as the cursor information, and this just makes things a lot easier to work with. Today's video is all about 3D reliefs and 3D relief creation. Most of those tools are right here in this small section. The first thing I want to show you is the Relief Clipart library. When you open the Relief Clipart library, if you don't have the Relief Clipart library already, you can click the Get More Cliparts button. This will take you to the website where you can download that. The Relief Clipart already has a ton of great reliefs already built in. A lot of these will make great bases to build new 3D projects. To bring a relief in, all you need to do is grab it and drag it in. We're going to start with this sign base here, and I'm just going to drag this in. When you bring a relief in from the Relief Clipart library, the relief will be blue in color. When the relief is blue, this lets you know that you can still manipulate this. You can change the size, the shape. We can rotate it around on an axis, and you'll notice over on the right hand side we have our scale and size box. You can link the size together and maintain the aspect ratio between the width, the height, and the thickness by pressing the lock button if you want to keep it all the same. If you want to customize each one of those sizes, you just uncheck it and then you can put in your own size. So if we want to make this 6 inches tall and 18 inches wide, we press apply and it'll create our sign base for us. You can also just grab the nodes and pull those and move those around. If you press F9, this will center the relief. You also can put in where you want with the origin position. The center of this material is the 10 by 10 spot. So if we put in 10 by 10 here and press apply, that will center that material. The Z range is the thickness of the model. And if we turn that to the side, you can, and I zoom in here, you can see how thick this model is. The little red arrow allows you to adjust this height, and you can see as I adjust it on the right hand side over here, it's adjusting the height. So if we set that to say, let's make it a 1/2 inch. And then when we're ready, we can paste that down and it will apply it to the zero plane of our material. Before we paste it down though, we have some options down here in our paste mode. We can add it to our material. Let's press add, and that adds it to the top of our material. If I undo that, now notice that when I undid that, the pasting tools are not there. You have to click on the relief and press the transform button. I go over the transform button in the second video, Introduction to Vectors, so if you haven't seen that, please check that one out. We also can set it to subtract, and this will remove it or put it in the negative. We have merge high, merge low, and replace. These three options have more to do with combining reliefs, and I'll get into that in just a few minutes. For now, we're just going to press add because we want to add this to the top of our material, and we press paste. Now we have a sign base on our material to work with. If I open my Relief Clipart library back up, Carveco Maker lets you stack and import as many reliefs as you want, so you can use these to create a very complex 3D model. Let's grab this fish right here and drag it in. You notice when I brought it in, it came in really big, and we can size this down. Let's say we're going to put this in our model. Now notice the thickness of the fish and the thickness of the plaque are melded together right now in the view. You can see what the fish looks like here. If we push it up here, you can see that these two heights are blending together. At the top of our transform tool, we have two tabs. The second tab is our combine mode tab, and this is just another place to change the paste mode. You can select add, subtract, merge high, merge low, and replace here, You also can change it up here with the little graphics that helps show you what it's going to do a little better. If we press add, the add combine function is going to add these two reliefs together. If we press paste, it's going to add that fish on top of our plaque. Now if I undo that, and let's go back to our transform mode because it's blue, I'm going to change that to merge high. And if we press paste, now it merges the two together at the same level. Whatever level you had them together with, that's the level at which they're going to paste together. And this time we're going to pick replace, and I paste this down. Now the fish will cut out the plaque and replace with the fish. And that's how the replace works. Let's undo that one. Now if we press subtract, it's going to subtract the fish from the model. So that subtracts it in the Z and gives you that fish as a recess. And our last option is merge low. This is going to attempt to merge whatever is below the surface with what is on the surface. So everything that is below the surface of the fish is going to merge with the surface of the fish. So when I press this, all the stuff that was below the surface stayed there, and everything that was above it just merged with the plaque. And that's how the merge low works. It's just the opposite of merge high. If we go back to the add button, I want to show you the add flush tool. You can add material below the fish. If we look, this sign is 0.25 or a 1/4 inch. So if we add a 1/4 inch flush to the bottom of our fish and then we paste it down, it's going to add an extra 1/4 inch wherever that fish is. If I press merge high, and let's make this 0.15, and I paste it down, 0.15 of that fish, see the bottom fin is still below the surface there, but it moved it 0.15 from the base of the material. And that's a way that you can get the fish to fall in a certain spot inside of other piece of material. If you do the subtract, it's going to add the flush to the subtraction. So it's going to add 0.15 to that subtraction when we paste it down. So it'll have 0.15 material drop, and then it will subtract the fish. And that's what the add flush button does. We have a couple of tools up here at the top. We have our invert relief tool. If we press this button, this will completely invert our relief and make it a recess rather than stand proud. We can press that and change that at any time. We also have our scale relief tool. This allows you to scale the relief to a new height. You can see right now that this entire relief is 1.5 inches tall. Let's say our material is only 1 inch tall. So we can change this to 1 inch, press apply, and it will change the entire relief to 1 inch tall. We also can use the red arrow and drag the height, and you can drag it into the negative or the positive. Anytime you want something to go into the negative, you just use negative numbers like here. So if I want to go minus 0.25, that would put it a 1/4 inch recessed. If I want 0.25 proud, or if I want it to 1/4 inch tall, then I would just press a 1/4 inch tall. 0.50 1/2 inch tall. Do notice that the flatter that you make your models, the less definition and detail it's going to have. So the taller that you can make reliefs, the more detail it's going to look like it has. If I go back to my paste tool, I had this option to paste an outline vector. And when I add that fish, this would give me a vector around the fish. If I go back to my scale relief tool, we can then use that vector as a mask. If I push selected vector, then the only thing that's going to scale is the fish. So if I want to scale just the fish and not the plaque, I can do it this way. It's using a vector as a mask. That's a very powerful tool and a very good way to manipulate the different reliefs to make it do what you want it to do. You draw a vector around it, and using that vector, you can scale the relief to change the height of different items. This little box is our 0 inside a vector, and if you hold it down, it also gives you the 0 outside a vector. And what this will do is if I press 0 inside a vector, is it will bring whatever's inside that vector back to the 0 plane. You can do just the opposite and go 0 outside the vector and 0 everything outside the plane. Again, using vectors as a mask is a good way to cut things out of your relief project that you don't want. So let's say you make something and you just don't want part of that relief. You can draw a vector around it, zero inside it, and it will completely remove it. The next tool I want to show you is the Smooth Relief tool. Now this tool allows you to smooth all of the rough edges that you might have in a relief. I'm going to set this to 0. You can set the strength of how much smoothing is going to happen. If you zoom in, your relief, a lot of time when you import these reliefs, they're going to have rough edges along the sides. And the way to smooth that out is to just use the Smooth Relief tool and add some smoothing strength until you get that smoothed out. And once you press apply, you can see that it smoothed all of those edges of that fish out so that it's not rough anymore. However, do note that it will also smooth out your details, so you have to be careful on how much you use that tool. If I undo that, you also can use a vector as a mask. So if I select this vector and now I press selected vector, the only thing that's going to get smoothed is the fish. This is a good way to separate items that you may or may not, like say you did not want to smooth out the sign base and you only wanted to smooth the fish. You could use a selected vector and that would allow you to just smooth out the fish. Our next tool over is our Reset Relief tool. This tool will basically reset your entire relief and remove everything except the vectors. So this is how you start over or zero everything back to 0. So other than using the Relief Clipart library, which is very powerful, you also can import reliefs. And when you import a relief, it looks a little different. So if we go to import, you have two options to import a relief. You can import a pre-existing 3D model, or you can import a photograph bitmap to make for photo V carving. I have a whole video on that, and I'll leave a link for that one above. If you press the import 3D model, this will import for a 3D model that you may have downloaded. I have a model of a wolf scene that I'm going to import, and once I bring it in, it's going to bring open this Paste 3D model box, which is different than the other import relief box or the transform tool. Because this Paste 3D model box is open, this model is free floating. It is not blue, but it is free floating. We can center the model, which it's already centered. Sometimes when you import these models, they will come in off on the side. And if I were to move this, you can move this model around. These are the position settings. So whatever position I want, if I want it in the 20 by 20, and that's the center of the model. If you wanted the left-hand corner at the 20 by 20, then you could use the left-hand corner. This determines wherever the model is going to be placed. You also can press the center button and it will automatically center it. The Z height is how deep or how tall the model is sitting on the material. If you were to add an inch to this, the model would be floating an inch off the top. And if you were to paste that down, it would add an inch of material to make it paste all the way down. If you use a negative number, like -1, then the relief goes below the material plane. And if you pasted this down, nothing would appear. But you can use this -0.5 to move the model up and down if you want to cut some of the thickness of the model. In the boxes below, these check boxes link the aspect ratio of the size. This is the Z or thickness of the model, and then the actual size of the model. And if I change these, because they're all linked, it's going to change all of them. So if I change this to 30, notice it changed all of those to keep that aspect ratio. And if I press apply, it will make it all that size, keeping the aspect ratio. I can uncheck these and set a very specific size. So if I wanted this 18 by 16, then I could set that. And notice that it kept it at 1.5 inches tall. You also can change the depth of it independently. If I only wanted this 1/2 inch. Now this model is only 1/2 inch thick. And then when I paste this down, it's going to paste that model. Now notice this box stayed open. That's because it will now attempt to paste a second model down on top of this model. If I were to move this 20 by 20, you can see there's a second model that is trying to paste down. So we would just press cancel and that would get rid of that second copy. Let's go back to our import relief 3D model and bring that wolf back in. The middle buttons are to rotate that model in the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis. This is in degrees, so if I wanted to rotate that model on the x-axis, and let's rotate it 90 degrees, I press apply, and now it's rotated that model 90 degrees on the x-axis. So you can rotate and flip the model. If I do another 90 degrees, that model is now upside down. We would want to do 180 degrees to flip it back over. You also could rotate and spin the model this way. If I go 90 degrees, I can rotate and spin the model, and I also can make it stand on its end by rotating it on the y-axis. Now this rotating function is something that can only be done while you're pasting the 3D model from an import. You cannot rotate the model like this from the Clipart library. So depending on how you import the 3D model, whether it be from the Clipart library or from an existing 3D model or an STL, you will get different functionality or the ability to rotate this model around. So it's important to know the difference between importing a 3D model and bringing in an STL, or using the Clipart relief library to bring in an existing model. Now notice I have two of these open, and so it has a double paste mode. And we can manipulate and add things in to our existing models. You can paste that down and paste this down. And that's how you can build a scene using both the Clipart library and importing STLs. Now, you can import your STLs into your Clipart library, and that's very simple. All you have to do is go up to File and press Save As, and it's a .art file. You would just want to go to your Carveco, which is in your My Documents, go to the reliefs, go to the file that you want to save it in. So if we wanted to save this wolf scene in our animals file, we could title it Wolf Scene, save it there. Now, the wolf scene is in our Relief Clipart library. And this is two powerful ways to be able to manipulate your different relief models. You also can save your reliefs as STLs by using the Create Triangle Mesh tool. By creating a triangle mesh, you can create your STLs. It has a tolerance. This tolerance is how closely it will try and follow the model with the triangle. I suggest using a small tolerance, but you don't want to make it too small, as it takes more computing power to make the meshes. So the smaller the tolerance, the more computing power it's going to take, and sometimes this can lock your computer up. You can leave the back of the model open on an open mesh, or you can close it with a flat plane. If we press Create, this will create a relief model that we can then export as an object, an STL, and you would just name this Wolf Scene. And then you could bring that back in as an STL. And this allows you to take your reliefs and save them as STLs and also as .art files, which you can use in your Relief Clipart library. Two powerful tools to manipulate reliefs into creating new relief designs and projects. Going back to our sign base, I wanted to show you another way to manipulate 3D reliefs using vectors. This time we're going to use our text tool, and we're going to create some letters. Carveco Maker. We're going to press F9 to center that text. We can use these letter vectors as a mask for our scale relief tool. And if we go back in here into our scale relief tool, we have to select selected vectors so that we're not scaling the entire relief. And we're just going to scale the letters. We can set our scale height of our letters, 1/2 inch, press apply, and now we've made raised letters. This is a quick and easy way to manipulate a relief using vectors, and we can also go the other way, and we're going to put a -0.25, and now you can see that we've now made recessed letters using the same technique. Using vectors and reliefs, you pretty much can create anything that you can imagine. We can use our smooth tool to smooth these letters over. We also could draw a box around these letters. You can keep going. You can build this as complex as you would like. We can now use this square, and we can raise a small little platform in the middle of our plaque. Very powerful tool, and that's another trick to creating unique items with the vector tool and the scale relief tool. One last tool I wanted to mention was the vector boundary tool. If you go to Vector, Create, Relief Boundary, this will bring up your relief boundary tool. Now, if you have this box unchecked, use height range, and you press Create Boundary, this will create a vector boundary around the outside of your model. You can, however, use this tool to create vectors around other parts of your model. If I hover my mouse over the middle of this material, you can see it's about 1/4 inch tall. So if I use a height range and I change this to 1/4 inch, and I create boundaries, it will now create a boundary from everything that is above a 1/4 inch. And by changing these different heights, you can make boundaries around different things in your model. This is an easy way to create a boundary around something that you're trying to trace by using height to get that information. You can also have this tool create smooth boundaries, and it will round the corners off if that's what your design calls for. Now all we would need to do is to create a machine relief and machine this out. I'm going to be going over toolpathing and best machining practices in my next video, so make sure and catch the 4th and final video of our series. If you find this content valuable, please subscribe, give us a like, and ring the bell. That lets us know we're doing okay. And if you have any questions about our content, please leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks guys, have a good one.